Welcome to the What is the New Black podcast. Today we have a very special guest, my English professor, Professor Hannon. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing, man?
Pretty good. We're going to go straight into these questions.
Cool.
A lot of teachers I've had aren't as cool as you, I could say, because you're in a punk band.
Oh,
And yeah, I can see the guitar and the drums in the background, so that's
oh
pretty
yeah,
cool.
that's my bass. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the bass. So, first question is, what got you into the punk scene?
Well, I was out at community college in North County in like '90, and I worked at a college bookstore. I was just like, I was 16. I was just trying to go to school and just, I don't know. It's kind of strange to put it this way. My parents didn't have any plans for me. That's why I was at community college, and so I met a guy at the bookstore who needed a bass player, and he
Right.
straight up said to me, "Do you play bass?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Doesn't matter." And so we went to the swap meet the next week, bought a bass for $60, and played a show in 4 months for the
Wow.
boss of the bookstore, who was throwing like some big like
Hmm.
Halloween shindig. And so it was the first time I was like, "Oh, that's why people play instruments, to go hang out with other people."
Yeah, and socialize and stuff.
And then from there, it's just like once you play an instrument, you just run into people who needed musicians. It was kind of the era of
Hmm.
indie rock and punk, and I just came across the punk rockers. I think I matched personally better with them because there was
Hmm.
always something a little bit anarchic and outsidery about them.
Right. So, what do you think will make like defines the punk? What the punk in somebody? What brings that out? You
Well,
think?
I was trying to look at it I've been looking at it in two ways, right?
Hmm.
Recently. By the way, I did write my master's thesis on this sort of, so
Oh, cool.
it's kind of cool that I'm getting to answer it. But I was even talking to my wife about it because recently I've seen what happened with the Donald Trump election,
Hmm.
that there was all these punk rockers I knew had split into two camps. And it was like very disturbing to me to watch some of the people who I thought were at least acquaintances sort of lean towards this nihilistic, anarchic sense of, screw the system, let it rot. And
Right.
so basically they were Trumpians. And then there was like this other left that I'd been part of, which I think people were started calling Bernie Bros. It was more like a
Uh-huh.
Bernie left. And so I think what for me made me a sort of a natural punk is having traveled around all across the country all the time and meeting so many different people. I was always the outsider in any group. So there
Hmm.
was always a group of people who would accept me into their school because I traveled there. My parents moved every like 6 months or a year. So I'd
Yeah.
always be the new kid. And so the only people who would talk to me would be the losers of the groups, because
Right.
they're the only people who need more
Yeah.
people for their crew. The other people
Exactly.
were already
Yeah.
established.
They got
And
to
so,
stack up.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Totally. They could use an extra body, right? And so I was there and I could do that. But consequently, my values became one of always being on the outside. And
Right.
so that's where I really preferred to be. And by the time I got to community college, then I just started meeting more of the outsiders. And so it gave
Hmm.
me this sense that, so that getting back to the previous thing, as a punk rocker, I could tell now the people who were more on the inside and who were from a community and were just, punk rock was a style and it was a way to be like, screw the system,
Yeah.
versus people were like, no, if punk rock hadn't existed and I had been the same person, I would have been another kind of an anarchist. It's just that punk
Okay.
rock was socially responsible
It's
anarchists. I
it's
just want to
kind
make
of
that
like
clear.
punk rock is a home for some people,
Yep.
and then for some people they'll live anywhere with punk. It doesn't have to be punk rock. You know what I'm
It
saying?
just happened to be for me because that
Right.
was the most, that's the clearest way that I could express outsiderness. And so you could
Hmm.
even see who I hung with in the scene were always the outsiders. I was a guy near the pit
Yeah.
helping the pit stay. I was never in the center. It was
Hmm.
just always, you could always tell who you're.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I've actually two. I made like an album 2 albums ago. The name of it was Outcast because I actually moved around too growing up. Like,
Oh,
yeah. So and then I kind of got into the indie scene, so I can kind of relate to you, but it's just different type of music, definitely.
exactly. It doesn't really matter. It's
Hmm.
I get mad when people talk about the style of punk and the music of punk. It has to be, or even the attitude, like it has to be, "Blah," but that was like Gen X. It can be just finding communities of people who are different thinkers, and you
Right.
don't need to be. Not everybody needs to be the same or feel the same and think the same.
Hmm.
Kind of a thing, yeah.
Right. So what was that scene like coming up? Because it's one thing for us, the new generation, to hear about it, but you were actually there. Can you like give us some moments, or like what was it like just being there?
Yeah, sure. So I was in North County. So the big scene was down in San Diego. Bigger scenes were in LA, obviously, or
Mm-hmm.
in the major areas like New York or Chicago or DC. So that's where the big scenes existed. But San Diego had a pretty big hardcore scene. And if you look deep into the history, you'll see that we had Battalion of Saints and some really cool hardcore bands out here. But up in North County, it's very strange. It was a lot of alternative music, just like the stuff that was on the radio, because North County is sort of isolated from culture. So
Right.
San Diego had the culture. But what happened was, as I was in an alternative band, and then once I went down to San Diego to play shows, I started seeing punk bands. And then I was like, oh, I started liking those people better.
Mm-hmm.
It felt more natural to me. So then
Right.
when I moved back to North County, I started finding people who wanted to play punk. And we had to put ads in like the reader, like just legit put like band six bass player in the reader,
Right.
or find people right. And
Exactly.
so it was like the Craigslist on paper of the time. And so I basically found my community, and the scene was a lot of playing record stores. To be honest,
Oh,
I mean, the
nice.
majority of places were record stores, and you just clear out the shelves, and you put the band
Mhm.
in there. Somebody would bring the PA, and it was kind
Yeah,
of
I wish that stuff was still going on, because like I feel like nowadays people don't want to do that kind of stuff because they feel like they don't have to. They
mm,
don't want to like gather, create something, or socialize. Or I mean, there is still bands and stuff, but I feel like people aren't willing to just jump in. They have to like think about it, or what does this look like, or they have a. I feel like people are watching them too much.
I do think that that's the kind of the curse of your age, is the constant feeling of being observed. And so you accept the observation and then you make the best of it, which is to say, as long as I know I'm going to be observed, I'm going to make this into a Snapchat moment or to like an
Right.
Instagram moment. And so everything then becomes calculated. And
Exactly.
it's when you're in that calculation that you lose any chance to accidentally do something weird that
Mm-hmm.
becomes the new thing that people will want to calculate afterwards. So if
Yeah.
you're just reproducing the past, you cannot
Right.
accidentally do something that was awkward
Can't
that
create.
becomes new.
Can't create anything new. That's why the music is regurgitated. Everything's cycled even faster now. I feel like in a
Yeah, I
way.
mean, in my day too, you have to understand that in the '90s we were going through a whole swing revival, right? And so
Okay.
swing was reviving, and so a lot of bands got on the I was going to say the bandwagon, but there was a band called Royal Crown Review, for example,
Yeah.
and it would be called Swingers, which is all about these Gen X '90s dudes who just love like swing music. And you had the same thing happen in the '80s. You had a revival of '50s. So bands like the Stray Cats Strut were like trying to redo '50s Brian Setzer, right? And
Mhm.
so since all of youth culture started with the baby boomers, and even in my generation, it's been copy the thing of the past, right?
Right.
But I do think you're right that there's so much more emphasis on being palatable, and there's no dignity in failure
Hmm.
anymore, that
Yeah.
that pre-produce the thing that everybody likes. Why would
Exactly.
you? So
Why would
even
you
if
try
you did,
anything new?
yeah, so even if you did hardcore punk rock now, there's bands who are like in their 20s, and they're bands that no one want to listen to. They're like, yeah, 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 but it sounds exactly like stuff that people who listen to that music would listen to. So it's very appealing to people who like that genre.
Mhm.
So
I
even the
guess.
unappealing
Yeah.
music is appealing to the people.
You could say that. I guess in a way, some people don't like their group getting too big and getting saturated by people who don't care. I
Yeah.
guess now you can say these groups, the people who do form these groups, they're actually more into it because it's theirs and it's not like, it's kind of private in a way because nobody wants to join. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting way to put it. I hadn't thought of it that way, but that's why we're talking.
Yeah, exactly. So you're still playing and
Well, I mean, as of like 3 weeks ago,
uh, yeah.
that's probably the end of my band. So
You guys can get back together?
no, I mean, we were playing. We played a show that we
Oh.
played the last show that was
Oh, you
played.
can't because because the virus. Jeez, you guys need to do a Zoom. Everybody play together. I wonder if the lag might not work, but
And I was thinking about that too. And I was talking with one of my friends who's in another band because all the band people know each other. It's just like band geeks up the wazoo. And so
Hmm.
we're all like, texting each other and trying to set up virtual happy hours. But he's like, what do you think we're going to play? And I'm like, dude, even when they have bands back, it's not going to be punk bands because punk is dirty. Punk is
Right.
punk is a
Washing.
virus. There are bands called the virus. I mean, it's you
Right.
you go to a punk show, people are spitting on each other. Like that was on purpose. It was called gobbing. But even when they're not doing it
Wow.
on purpose now, because they don't, you're still spitting on people because the music is so loud that the only way to talk to them is to
Just
projectile stuff. It's a dirty,
people
sweaty mess.
people would like hack up some spit and just launch it at people like a cowboy in the bucket, like, you know?
Sort of like this. It was. You can look it up. It's called gobbing. So it became kind of like almost a practice because it was punk meant bottom and it meant low, and so there was this whole kind of the culture and sort. I think this was an overt practice to show that you did not fear being in the gutter, but it
Mhm.
was this idea of mixing that you don't get to be socially pure and you don't get to be virally pure. You are, I wouldn't call it an orgy because it's not sex, because that was
Right.
the 70s and we hated that. It was more about sharing what you had, everything.
Yeah.
And
Like,
you're not going to share your stuff with me if you're afraid of my germs. So I was just talking with
okay.
my punk friends the other day. He's like, yeah, I was a germ fiend until I was afraid of germs until I became punk rocker. After that, I was cured because there's just
Right.
no tolerance for it.
Yeah, and I feel like, germs are one of those things you can't really avoid germs. Like they're there. Like, what are you gonna do about it?
Well, today, that's interesting. When we sidetracked it a little bit, but
Hmm.
as a teacher, I was exposed to a lot of germs because I taught in the inner city, and the kids would come sick all the time. They put stuff everywhere, and you develop kind of a strong immunity. But
Right.
COVID is new,
He's new.
and that's I think the thing that's freaking people out. The thing that they thought was their shield, there may be a workaround on this shield, and so
Hmm.
some of us pride ourselves in our immune systems, right? I
Right.
eat right. I've done what I needed to do, but
Gym
that doesn't
freaks.
mean what's that?
The gym freaks.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean I'm going to be free of what occurs. Anyhow,
I
sorry
wonder,
about
I
that.
wonder though, like say you have this healthy routine to keep your immune system healthy,
Yeah,
and now it has to stop because of the virus. Is your immune system going to get weaker? Then the virus is going to be, more
people
dangerous.
people have been talking about that, right? I think that's one of those fears. But what I would say is this: from the stuff that I've read, for one, my immune system's not going to get weaker because I've been teaching for like 20 years, or I've
Right.
been in the class. I've been around for 20 years, so I think taking a year off
Hmm.
doesn't.
It's very true. Yeah.
I think the danger of getting this virus and passing it on is it's an RNA virus and it has the ability to transmute, and so we want to because the more it passes through people, the more it changes. I don't know if you know much about RNA viruses, but they replicate the
No.
cell. But virus replicates the
Oh,
cell
like
information.
RNA, DNA, like
Yes, the difference between
yeah,
RNA and DNA.
yeah,
But the
exactly.
code is badly copied. So in the copying of the code, it might mutate it in a way that makes it unstoppable.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, actually, I remember that from my anthropology class. They showed us how the chain and everything and how,
Oh, really? From
yeah,
the bioanthropology or something?
yeah, it's one of the biology. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think this is gonna. I think this is the necessary step. It is unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I can't even practice with my band,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
so my wife and I've been playing a lot, but that's cool.
So speaking of, oh, your wife plays too. So you guys still play. What keeps you guys going? Inspires you to play?
I think we've been trying to play. We've been listening to a lot of meters and a lot of like old '70s soul and funk lately
Hmm.
because it's one of the things that we never got a chance to do because when you're so busy making punk rock music, you got to kind of just keep on the cycle. When you have a full-time job, you can't be like learning new stuff. You just write punk rock, you play punk rock, you do the shows, and by the time it's time to learn funk and soul, we just don't have the time. So now we've been like learning
Yeah.
some like old meter songs and it's been fun because I was trained. I mean, I could play bass. I know how to play soul and funk, but I haven't been able to
Mhm.
been allowed to do it. So it's
Yeah.
been a good.
It's almost like a blessing and a curse in a way because even for me, I get to work on my clothing line. So I get to, spend a lot of time sewing, getting stuff done, even the podcast. I probably wouldn't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
started if we were still in school. So
That's
exactly.
that's the thing is all these ruptures produce new opportunities, right?
Right.
And well, they do. I mean, it's not great, but yeah, precisely. I started a project with one of my former students, I mean, from like 5 years ago, where she wants to like do a whole COVID, like kind of critical theory call response thing on a Google Doc. And so we're already like 25 pages into this thing
Oh,
after a week
nice.
of just back and forth. And it's pretty incredible. And it's something that we just wouldn't have done had the opportunity presented itself.
Mhm.
So I'd like to see what people will do in this grift, this new thing that's emerging.
Yeah,
That's kind of exciting.
it is. It is. I can tell that like even my friends, the ones who are, let's say, not as creative or they don't do that much, they're starting to open up and do things and try new things because they have no choice. I mean, even my friend who's right down the street from me, like he normally doing stuff. This is a little joke, but he puts a he puts a picture of Obama putting uh the chain, like a gold medal chain, on another Obama. And like he puts that on my car. I'm like, you would never do that if we were in school or if we were doing stuff. So it's kind of
Right.
funny to see what people do. You know?
I think that's related to a big problem that I've seen since Gen X, and I think that Gen X definitely had this kind of healthy disrespect for labor. And I don't mean like this idea that you shouldn't work, but the idea that work itself doesn't make you into anything. So what?
Right.
You got a job,
Yeah. Oh, you're cool.
right? But
Nice.
and this is like from Hannah Arendt. This is like this idea of the distinction between work and labor. And your labor is for society, and you labor to contribute, but your work is for you. It's for your project. And it's been so hard for, I think, the generations after mine to see how their own work projects were important compared to labor, given the way that we're so over the barrel in terms of how much we have to work to pay for the necessities in life, that there was no time to even think about personal projects. And so
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going through this crisis right now of like, now that I don't have labor, what do I do?
Exactly.
Because I never thought about developing a personal life project because it just wasn't in the cards for me. And so now I almost have to rethink my whole life.
Right. This is good though, because I feel like a lot of people, those people who die in the same routine, from like 20 to 60, they do the same thing every day. It's good for them to get out of that.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen the Truman Show with Jim Carrey?
Of course.
Of course you have.
No, but you've seen it though too. That's great.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Imagine if he never hit that wall at the end.
That's what, I think it's a good metaphor, right? It's like maybe we're all hitting this wall much sooner. And maybe what's smacking us in the face is that labor isn't everything. That now we're all having to figure out that our lives are our heartbeats, and it's also these personal projects. I mean, it is contributing our labor to the collective community good through work, right? But it is also our personal work and projects that defines us and makes us into subjects and people.
Exactly.
And I think if your generation can spot that and not be, I don't want to say traumatized, but your generation comes from the generation of having been traumatized from 9/11, because as soon as that occurred, there's evidence that people were just like suppressing people and saying, look, we're scared right now. And so I hope this doesn't add another layer of like fear, and instead can be conceived of this moment.
I think it's probably going to happen, but
what is
like the fear?
Okay.
Because people have fear over anything. It's like everybody has different levels of fear, but obviously we can see that a lot of people are freaking out. A lot of people are not caring.
Yeah.
So I feel like enough people are freaking out for it to have an effect.
Yeah, I think it's becoming a what we would call cultural trauma. So and so once enough people are aware of it, you probably heard people make this comparison between like the war and the flu, and the World War I and the Spanish flu, is that it's affected people who are more cross-connected, so over wider swaths. And when that happens, it becomes more of the consciousness, and it's happening globally. So yeah, this is gonna be it's
pretty big.
Weird.
Yeah. We can move on back to you though. So what point did you decide I'm gonna start teaching?
So that was I didn't ever want to be a teacher. I know a lot of teachers say that, but that is just true. I mean, I was trying to write screenplays and I was playing music, I didn't really think I'd have a good job ever, to be honest. My parents really thought that Armageddon was coming. I was raised in Southern Baptist churches because we moved around and they got to be into that kind of stuff. And so I was always told that the world would end by 1990. So
Oh, wow.
yeah. And so then
Yeah.
when it ended in 1990, then we were pretty sure it was like 1993. And so it just kept on getting pushed back. And then finally I'm like, the world's not ending. I might have to get a job. And so
Wow. Yeah. That is funny. I wish I could say that. I don't have to work. There's no point.
well, it's weird like that, right? So it kind of put me in kind of a strange state, but I ended up moving to Los Angeles with my girlfriend, who became my wife. So and she was going to be the librarian in your class actually, because she works at Palomar. But
Mhm.
we moved there, and I started trying to get odd jobs, and I was a furniture mover in LA. And then I started getting a job at like the Beverly Hills Tutoring Center. So I started tutoring really rich kids, and that was really awful. And I just decided I'd seen movies where people they go to the inner city and they teach, and I was
Yeah.
like,
That's that one
like,
show with is it Morgan? It's not Morgan Freeman. It's the one where he has a megaphone. I forgot.
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
It's a classic, like it almost sounds like a bad script. There's this movie called Half Nelson, which was starring Ryan Gosling, but that came later. But it's sort of just a common like idea that you just go to your screenplay writer and you go to the inner city. And it's funny because when I was in those classes, like I was doing night classes, because they gave me an emergency credential because I wasn't credentialed to teach. I met other people who were screenwriters in that same
Oh, wow.
situation. It's
Yeah.
just, it's so common. And once I started teaching, I really loved it, man. You know what it was? It was the first time I ever had a job where I wasn't bored. Because in every other job I ever had in my entire life, I was just like,
Looking at the
I
clock.
need this to end. This
Yeah,
must end. I'd almost rather be dead than to work
Mhm.
this job. Right.
Right.
And this one, it was stressful and I felt dead at the end of the day, but the time,
It's going by. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then I found out teachers, like there was some statistic about how many decisions a teacher has to make in an hour. And it was something like 435 or something. It was,
Oh, wow.
and so yeah, it becomes almost like a drug, like because you're looking at so many things and making so many calculations that
Mhm.
you're in a flow. The only way to do that job
Yeah.
is to flow, and that's
Yeah.
why half the teachers drop out.
It's almost like driving. You know, they say like a defensive driver. Like
Yeah,
you always
yeah,
got to be making the first move. You can't react.
yeah. That's a funny way to look at it. Like
Yeah.
a defensive teacher is always on the good offense, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you're always
Can't play
predicting what
defense.
could come.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty. Hey, there you go.
Good analogy, man.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I'm an analogy guy. I've always had analogies in my back pocket, so it's just natural.
I love them. I
Thanks.
like analogies too. I think that's the best way to teach people because I think it can
Definitely.
convey an idea in a new way, and then
Mhm.
the person could ask why you said that analogy. They could think about it.
Right.
It's
That's what
brilliant.
I
Plus,
took philosophy last year, and philosophy is just one big analogy if you think about it. Those concepts, you know.
uh,
Yeah. So
sure, yeah.
that kind of helped. Hmm.
Yeah, there was a guy who actually talks about this, Deleuze, and he's a Italian theorist in the '60s. But he basically says that all these philosophical systems, no matter how different they are just different ways to conceive of the phenomenal world. And so it's just a new kind of a concept script, a schema. So it's
Hmm.
an analogy. So the language that we developed to describe something is another. I don't know. It's not the only way. Is my
Yeah,
point.
exactly. Oh, that's funny. Maybe being literal is an analogy. Yeah, it's kind of something to think about. So another thing to think about for you is what was the hardest part about getting the credentials or getting the,
Uh,
you know, the ranks?
so I think, and I don't know what your background is in terms of how your parents went to college, but my parents did a little bit of community college, but never graduated.
Hmm.
So I don't know if there was ever the sense that I was going to graduate even from college. I was just told I was supposed to go. And so probably I think the hardest part was for me, honestly, is nobody caring. Like in
Wow.
my case, it was just like, why would you do it? What does that
Hmm.
even matter? Like I'm working a job. So why do I go to college? You know, and because my family's smart and I consider myself smart, so I wasn't like I needed to go be like one of those people. I'm
Right.
smart and I can do what I need to do, and I don't need college. I do it because it's whatever. So I
Right.
think the hardest part was that, and so I just got stuck in community college for like years
Mm-hmm.
because I just enjoyed it so much, and I was like, where am I going to go
Mm-hmm.
once I go? And then once I get a degree, what am I going to do with it? Like, I didn't know people who worked because they had degrees. So how
Yeah.
do you even get a job once you have a degree? Like, so the hardest part for me is conceptualizing the next steps, because the people who come from families who are degreed and have that kind of a lineage, they
Right.
already know exactly when they get their bachelor's, or even when they go to community college, you'll meet them. I'm going there because I'm going to transfer. Once I transfer, I'm going to have to get my certificate. Once I get my certificate, I'm going to work in this form of radiology. And it's just kind of,
Yeah.
the script is there. But if
Exactly.
you're inventing it as you go, it could be a
Yeah.
big hindrance because you're
Mm-hmm.
not being strategic.
You said
You're
it could be a
just
big hindrance.
you have no big hindrance.
Oh, hindrance. I was like, oh, I've never
Hindrance.
heard that one.
It's yeah, you're like it's like basically like Jimi Hendrix, right? It's like
Right.
a you thought maybe it was like some kind of like a word named after him,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
no, it's just a hindrance to you because you don't have that
Hmm.
string that pulls you along.
Yeah. You're creating your own map.
You're you're creating your own map.
Hmm.
Yes, you're going much more slowly through it. So it's another
Right.
good way to put it, good analogy again.
Hmm.
And I think what I tell students is this: once you complete the bachelor's degree,
Hmm.
every other degree is easy.
Right. Right.
To me, that was the hardest one. And once that one was done, teaching credential.
Wow. They make it
That
seem
masters and two masters.
they make
Yeah.
it seem like bachelor's. They make it seem like once you get that, that's basically getting your GED, your diploma. That's what it seems like now for us, at least. Um,
No, I mean that's what they tell you its worth is.
yeah,
But
exactly.
I think the real worth is that you learned how to be a scrub.
Mm,
The real worth is that they actually make you do the things that they don't make other students do. Because once you go onto your graduate schools, you're kind of
mm-hmm.
they need you because you pay them
Right.
more money, you provide more of the value, and so they work with you. So it's a little. I mean, you still have to be smart, but it's not as.
Okay.
I'm not saying you can't be. I'm saying you have to be smart, but if you've gotten through your bachelor's degree, you're smart enough.
Mhm. Okay. So would you say the same thing for like the subject matters? Like, is it more difficult subjects after you get your bachelor's?
I think what my experience has been, and it grants you, I'm in the humanities,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the main difference is the theoretical parts of it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so you're not just looking at the actual things that you have to do, you're looking at the arguments of why this way may be preferred and why this way may not be. And so now you're getting to be part of the conversation as to why we do it. So when you're in a bachelor's in history, you may just learn of important historical events, and you may learn some forms of historiography or how people approach history. But by
Correct.
the time you go into your master's, you're learning about Hegel's dialectic of history. You finally understand what people mean by the end of history in 1989. You're
Yeah.
looking at the ways that not only history is, but the ways that people have chosen to write and construct it. And if you can't make that leap, it's going to be hard for you.
Uh-huh.
But for me, I wanted to always be doing that. That's all I always
Exactly.
wanted to talk about. Sounds similar for you,
Right.
personally.
Mm-hmm. So why did you pick English out of all subjects? I'm actually became when I was younger. I said I'm more of a math guy, right? And as I've gotten older, I think the English and math are probably the two subjects you need the most. But math, sometimes you don't even need it. So English is probably the subject that people need the most because you learn about stuff that's going on in a way.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
So I
Dude,
think that's
that sounds very similar to what I was thinking when I switched
yeah.
from math to English. By the way,
Oh, you used to do math first.
I was a math person. I was in math competitions in high school, and
Oh wow.
I
Yeah,
was
exactly. So yeah,
I
you
so
probably had
I
the same idea of what I'm saying then.
oh dude, I totally get it. It's my family was very like churchy, and so I was just talking with one of my friends about this. Between kindergarten and seventh grade, I missed probably 2.5 years of schooling, like
Hmm.
easily. But all my parents did is when we would travel around, they would just do math with me and we would read. And so essentially,
Hmm.
my parents had always told me this value: the only things that matter are math and English. And so
Right.
I was raised with that. So once I got to the point where I was at school, I was just doing my English classes first and my math classes first. And once I started to get higher into the math, into differentials, I had some fallouts with my family. And this is probably when I turned to punk rock. It's my family broke apart when I was 18. It just all went to shambles, and it was a mess. And I found that math was not helping me explain the world to myself or to other people very well.
Right.
And so if I was going to choose,
it's funny because they say people are not numbers, not 1 + 1 = 2. There's more that goes into it.
Well, what is the one, and what is what does the one
Exactly.
equal? That's why there's one X and
Yeah.
2A.
So English is more of that understanding humans compared to math. So that's
Yes.
the reason why, in a way, you kind of dismiss math, because you're trying to understand yourself. You can't really do that with 1 + 1 = 2.
You can't. You can go so deep into the code that you can't even you start to lose even track of what it means. And so at a certain level, when you're doing algorithms, right? Algorithms are ways of processing statistical data. And so at a certain point, mathematicians are very much about guiding what human behavior is, because they're at the heart of creating the singularity in artificial intelligence. So at the very advanced levels of math, there's kind of an arrogance that you can codify and quantify what creates a human. Now, and so some people who are drawn to those fields, I can see doing that. But for me at the time, it wasn't even a question. English classes were much more, I was able to talk with people in those classes. You try to talk with a math guy about mathy stuff is not.
Yeah.
But I mean, we just accidentally talked about ourselves in the English classes. But in math, you'd actually have to say, let's stop talking about math and can we just talk about me for a second? And that's awkward.
Yeah, that's funny.
So are you, so I think what happened with English is generally, it was by default. It was either going to be math or English.
Okay, well, for me, obviously, I chose English in a way, as in I like it more. I actually chose college in general, and a lot of kids my age aren't choosing college in a way. There's a lot of my friends, and I have nothing against them. They're just more like, I don't need it, or it's not for me. What do you say to the student who thinks that, or if they should give it a try, or even if they don't learn anything, just the experience?
Well, so the thing is you can't know what the arrow of time brings you. You don't know what's going to happen next. And that's what I think about college is that, well, to everything turn, there's a time and a place. Anything that you're going to want to do in the future, that's, okay. So there's a book called The Credentialed Society. And basically, we used to protect labor through guilds, and now we protect labor through certificates. And as long as there's a certification process, you're always going to be kept out of jobs that you could do better than somebody else because you didn't have the certificate. It turns out that I was better at teaching than 90% of the people who taught at my middle school. But unless I went through the certification process, I would have never known that. It would have kept me out. It's a gatekeeper. So for one, it's fascist. Okay, it's a gatekeeping system. That's clear. And I can see why that would piss you off, and I can see why you'd want to rebel against it. That's one. But the other part about this is it's almost like your body's in the best shape of your life when you're 16 to 25. Same with your mind. You're more flexible. You can handle more stress. You say, well, I'm not that smart. I'm like, you're smarter right now in terms of the processing information than you will be 10 years from now. Plus what do you say?
Or the firing off.
That's what I'm saying. It's just firing off. It has nothing to do with whether or not you know stuff. Exactly. It just means you can garbage in, even garbage out it. What I would say is hustle your way through that and get it done, because it's so much harder once life happens to go back later.
Kids, wives, all these other things come along. Yeah. Bills.
Just see it as a thing you have to get done, but never pay more for it than you absolutely have to.
Exactly.
Do not get it cheap. Get scholarships. Take community college classes. Do not give anybody top dollar for education.
Yeah.
Education is it's the system of fascism you have to go through, and you don't want to pay the fascist.
On our first episode of this podcast, we were talking about colleges and stuff, and I think I'm trying to remember what we were talking about, but because you said something that I'm trying to kind of losing it, but
no, I can wait.
something to do with like, okay, I think it was just get the education, just get it, and then you can go on and do whatever you want after. Like
Yep.
while we're not, oh yeah, while we're not paying bills, while we're still dependents. Most of us who were saying we don't want to go to college didn't even get the $1,200 check because we're dependents. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
it's like, might as well get it while you are dependent. Just go ahead and go ahead.
It is as bad as it was between my parents and me. It it was still tenable.
Mm-hmm.
My some of my students are like, I can't handle my parents. I got to get a job to just get on my own. I'm like, yeah, but now you're serving a boss,
Exactly.
and
There's new parents who don't care about
your
you.
parents. You at least have tricks.
Yeah.
I mean, it may be bad, but the workaround. You have to suck up a little pride.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for some students, it's bad stuff. It's like they're out and their parents are really anti. In some of them, it's
Yeah. It's
crazy
really.
level.
Mm-hmm.
But still, schools can provide a lot of support,
Right. Mm-hmm.
so I think it's still. So yeah, get it done while you have this opportunity. But there are still some students who, quite frankly, didn't even have what I have or don't have what you have.
Yeah.
That they're
Exactly.
already out on the streets essentially by the time they're like 17 or 18.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we do have pantries at Miracosa, though. We do have showering. There are ways we look
Definitely.
into the ways that the social services surround the colleges.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of help you can get, and I feel like it could. One thing about college for me that really changed the way I think was actually community college. I'm not even gonna say college,
Sure.
because in high school there's groups, there's cliques, right? And the whole outcast thing. I was a part of every group, but I didn't really like fit in all the way.
Yeah.
Not, I kind of did, but it wasn't like my group. Like I felt like home. I could just go anywhere. So that's how it is in high school. And then once you go to these big colleges, even Cal States, the UCs, there's still groups, right? And there's,
Totally.
there's like more status in your living on campus. There's people you want to fit in with. It's the same thing as high school, just intensified. And then thing about community colleges is feel almost like you're on your own, and you learn so much more. I feel like on your own, you become kind of independent, way more than you would I feel like a Cal State
Yeah.
or a UC. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that has been a danger, right? That the community college student becomes, and this happened to me, that the community college student becomes so independent and self-determined that that they stop seeking help later
Yeah,
on
I can
when they
attest to
transfer. I
that.
had the same problem.
Yeah.
Once I transferred, I'm like, I don't want anybody's help. It's me. I do it. I don't trust you. This is my work.
Mhm.
And when I met my girlfriend, she was like, "No, you're gonna need to do these things. You're gonna need."
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's hard
Yeah.
as somebody who's raised in that independent spirit to then want to seek out the networks because we've been so strongly DIY.
Exactly. But I feel like, hey, it's so for somebody who's stuck in a group, or if they're depending on other people too much, it's definitely going to be good for them to just go get it and realize that nobody's really going to be there after you finish college.
Yeah, one of the things I always tell my students on the last day, and this is the hard part about not going having an in-person class, is I hand out envelopes to students, and I always tell them, and there's something in the envelope. If I
Mm-hmm.
still do it, I might do it digitally, so I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. But
Right.
it's something I've been doing every year. And one of the things I tell them is if you ever just want to email me to let me know that you graduated, do it.
That's cool.
Because I realized that nobody cared in my family when I
Mm-hmm.
got my degrees. I didn't attend any graduation I ever had.
Mm-hmm.
A bachelor's, 2 master's degrees, never attended one graduation. Because to
Right.
me, it was just like, it's not a big deal. And
Exactly.
so I had a student recently just tell me they graduated, or like there's always 2 or 3 every year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always like, I'm probably one of the few people they could even tell who would care because their
Right.
friends don't care, their parents don't care.
Exactly. And they're telling you, like, I'm not saying you're a bad person. They're like, oh, they're telling you, but I'm saying fact,
No,
the fact that they're actually telling you is like they could have told anybody, and they went to you. They could have told their parents. They could have told their friend.
they need somebody to be excited for them because in some ways I think college works against your responsibility to family. and your responsibility to your friends, because the more you get involved in college, you're developing new networks of responsibility, and people around you could see that as a threat to how they might utilize you within their own networks.
Correct.
Because once you become focused on your own thing, you're like, hey, I need you to do this for me. And when I was going through my master's program, my mother was like this. She was like, I need you to pick this up for me. And I'm like, Mo, I'm like, I work and I go to school. I can't. And so it starts to threaten what she's got, right? So it becomes like it's better for her if I'm not, right?
Right. And then once the college students start dating, going out, it's like they're never home. For me, like my mom, there's a while when I was like never home. Like I'd spend the night at this girl's house like 3 nights in a row.
I don't know what that's got to do with college, but
you know, but like I met her in college technically. So
yeah, good.
Like, and I'm always in school and I'm never home. My mom's like, you're never home. Like, what are you doing? Like you're not, you know, like I got caught. You get caught up in the moments, and you definitely lose like connections with certain people. Like my friend from work, my friends from work. When I went to school, I wasn't hanging out with them every day.
Yep.
My friends from high school, I wasn't hanging out with them every day. So definitely lose a lot of strong connections. They're not gone. They just become weaker, I guess.
And they're not giving you the encouragement you're going to need when you're going through those hard times, because there's moments in the college trajectory, as you know, where it gets almost like unbearable. And it's those moments where you need other people around you, like a team going, we got this, bro, we can do this. And you need your community to lay hands on you and say, dude, just knuckle through this. We can get it. It's like your friends and they're not going to be like, hey, let me help you. They're like,
right.
That's on you,
the
bro.
Boxing ring, you know?
What's that?
The corner of the boxing ring. You gotta get in that corner.
Yeah. Okay, here's your analogy again.
There we go.
you gotta have Mickey like laying hands on you, like, come on, Rocky.
Yeah, with the water bottle.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Because they're not going to be your champions not because they don't like you, it's just because they don't see an advantage in it for them. And it's just kind of very natural to encourage the behaviors from social beings who can provide added value to us, or who we can see provide. Like my mother didn't see how I could provide added value to her through my degrees. I was taking from what we had before. But my intent was to always bring back the added value once I moved outward. Like education comes from two words, ex, dukare. Dukare means to lead. Ex means out, as an exit. So education is to lead out. And so you lead out and you lead away from what you were before. But no one says you can't bring that back. And
that's like I'm really happy you said that, because for me, like as a Black man in America, obviously, if you couldn't tell, a lot of Black people are Democratic, and
Democrats.
Oh, yeah, okay. The Democrats, right? And like it's more of like everybody help each other, against capitalism and like that kind of stuff, socialism in a way. Not like full on, but like, help each other to come up.
There's the value of community raising that needs to occur there, because the community has to hold everybody up. Yeah.
Right. And for me, I agree with that. But my idea of it is get your own personal wealth, then come back and help in a way with your family, as in get your education, then come back, and do your thing.
There is kind of go ahead. Yeah.
But like some people would get mad at me because I'm Black, and like, why aren't you trying to help out the community? It's like, I am, it's just not right now, like I will, in a way.
Yes. And I think, so there's this fear that somebody's going to be co-opted, right? And what happens is you go into the system and it converts you into a complete individualist, and it rearranges your brain. Have you seen the movie Get Out by Jordan Peele?
I'm kind of the person who hears something get hyped up, and I'm like, I'm gonna stay away from it.
That's not. I
love Jordan Peele too, but I know the basis of the movie.
Okay. So as this guy is dating this white girl, he starts to worry that he's being hypnotized, and that he starts to see all around him. It's almost like W.E.B. Du Bois' like idea of this other consciousness, and so he starts to feel like his consciousness will be eradicated. His original self is becoming white. Right, but it's more or less becoming like this kind of neoliberal, or this kind of do-gooder liberal type, and so it's interesting. But the point is when one moves away from one's community, one's in danger of being co-opted by the people. Like, let's say I find added value in you as you move away to your community, and I
Right.
can promise you more than your community can promise you.
Yeah.
I worry that I just lost you. I'm sorry, my community, your community worries they just lost
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
We can't give you what they can give you. And so it's
Right.
a danger. And so they would rather, I think, have less of you
Uh-huh.
than risk losing you and potentially getting all of you in your full fledged. Because as you're noting, you're only going to do good for the community if you become all Marcus could be. But
Exactly.
Marcus is just a seed right now, and I can give you what's in the seed, but you guys will bleed me dry because I don't have a lot to give. And that's
Right.
actually what I felt like with my mom. It's precisely the story I told her. I said, "Mom, I have to leave because I was living there until I was 27. I can't give you. I got to leave. If I don't go, I can't bring anything back. I'm just going to drain out what I have and
Mm-hmm.
die on the vine. So we all got to go out and get our own, but bring it back."
Exactly. So I think that's very important for any community, anybody listening. That kind of message is good for them to, not wait, in a way.
No, build yourself up to your full strength. I think
Mhm.
there's when I did a lot of tutoring in the Jewish community, there was that sense that everybody did on their own. Like they were very Hasidic, and it was in the Fairfax area of Hollywood, and everybody got their own, but then everybody brought it back.
Right.
You
And
know,
what they
and
say about
so
the Jewish community, like you guys you're Jewish, right? You're in a Jewish community?
well, no, I mean I found out later on that I have
Oh, that's right. Yeah. It's kind
but
of
I
it's
was
a
raised
religion and a race, right?
and a culture.
Yeah, and a culture. There we go. Yeah. So that's
Because my
why,
grandfather
yeah.
was culturally Jewish, but not
Mm-hmm.
because he was an actor and he did all these other. He was yeah.
Right. So, and their wealth stays within them in a way, in that group.
They call it like Jewish socialism. Some people refer to it as. I have a
Hmm.
Jewish friend who refers to it this way. And so,
You taught me that actually.
who?
You.
Oh, I did. I did bring it up to you guys already.
Yeah, in class. Hmm.
Oh
It's
no.
funny.
Yeah, but I think it is. I think that's almost what you're describing. Is that we extend outward, but it's trusted that we owe it back to our communities.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I feel like the African American community needs to do that at some point if they want to, in this climate, if they want to come up in a way.
Well, I think what I don't know if you know much about the history of the Black Panthers and the kind of
Hmm.
the breakfasts they were providing, but I think if we looked at like when I worked in the inner city, there was free lunch program, right? And there's a sense that once the state starts giving free lunches to people of color, that now when you give free something that somebody owes you something back, it's like reciprocation. So
Hmm.
if I give you lunch, then
Hmm.
you owe me.
Right.
And so the Black Panthers, before even free lunch programs existed, were giving free lunches, and they were showing up, and white bureaucracy started to be afraid that now poor
Right.
Black people would start
They
to
won't have to owe them anything.
they will owe Black people stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and they'll owe the leaders and the mentors and the revolutionaries, and they're like,
Right.
no, we're going to start giving free lunches now, and they're going to cut right in there.
It's so
But
funny.
but we sh- but if people aren't eating, you can't give them anything. And so unless
Hmm.
the community can figure out how to distribute its goods and to share it, you
Hmm.
know, you're kind of relying upon the state.
Exactly. And that's not anything good to rely on the state, I feel like,
It
in
has
my
its
opinion.
problems. It has
Right.
reliance upon it has its problems. But
Yeah.
something going on. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
UPS truck or something just pulled up.
Oh
Oh, it's
yeah.
good. It's off now. That's good. It's good. That's funny.
So that is a more difficult conversation to have. But we should probably talk about it sometime off camera.
Yeah, definitely.
But
I just wanted to go into that because that's what you reminded me of when you said about your mother and stuff. But if we can move on, do you have any questions for me or anybody my age? You know?
I'm glad you asked that.
Hmm.
Like, I guess my question is about how do you see your knowing that we're going to be under
House
lockdown.
arrest.
What?
House arrest.
Social distancing norms, physical
Yeah.
distancing norms, house arrest, shelter in place.
Right.
Knowing that this is going to probably occur for a while, is
Mhm.
this changing the way you think about school and your future career?
Um, like right now, I'm getting annoyed with some of my teachers. Not you, but some of them. It's like you're not really working. with us. You're keeping everything the same. It's like my last teacher, she gave us a quiz that was only an hour at like a certain time of the day. And I had no
Oh,
idea about it. I didn't even see it on my Canvas or the module. I'm like, can you please extend it or let me take it? It's still the same day. And she's like, no.
really?
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, but I'm trying to pass. I need that class to get it my degree. And if I don't pass that, I won't get it. So like, I'm like stressing out over that. But big picture wise, I don't really think so. We do everything else online. I could do school online, you know.
So you feel, because I was thinking this, that you guys had already been like Generation Z had already been so acculturated to being online that this was almost like inevitable, and that
But
you
it's different. It's like it's any kids like this. When you want to do the dishes, you're gonna do it, and then your mom tells you to go do the dishes. You're like, okay, I don't want to do them. I'm always online, but when somebody tells me I have to be online or I can't do this, I'm like, it's just mindset thing. I think it's just how defiant kids are, teens are. My
no,
20s.
it's my wife. We would have these different classes at UCSD, and I remember I was looking through her trunk one day. I was just putting some stuff in the back, and I found this book, and I was like, "Oh wow, that looks interesting." She says, "Yeah, you can read it." I'm like, "Well, what's it for?" She's like, "It's from a class that I'm not reading it for." And I'm like, and I wasn't reading my books. I was like, I wanted to read her books just
Right.
because. You point out, I'm not going to read the stuff that's assigned to me. I'd rather read your assigned stuff.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So that's how it is with the whole school and stuff.
But I think it is that striving for one's identity, right? We do want to do things that we know belong to us. And it's hard to think that something is our own when it's been given to us by someone. And I think that is a stage of identity where one starts to say, I am my own human and I'm me and I don't copy you. And so
Well, that's probably like children's psychology. I bet they study that, like what makes them not want to do things because somebody tells them.
well, they first they mimic their parents' desires and then they
Mhm.
reject them, right?
Yeah.
Because they want to think that they're an individual or subject. But in a larger sense, I feel like American culture, and this has certainly been written about,
Mhm.
is such a youth culture that I don't think it's a rebellion thing that just happens when you're young. I think it continues on, that people constantly only want to do the things. Or I don't think it's something that people grow out of necessarily. Is my
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely not. Yeah.
So your generation, you think is pretty well poised to take over the world now because you've been doing the online
Well,
stuff.
I don't want to be rude, but it seems like we have no choice the way the virus is coming at people, you know? Like the way it's set up is we are the ones who are supposed to be here. Not so we're all supposed to be here,
Oh no!
but that's funny. Well, good
You
thing
can
about
edit
this.
that out.
This is early. It's early podcast days. We could get away with that stuff. You know, we don't have enough following to get in trouble over that, but you know, it doesn't really affect us like it affects other people. So I feel like
Mm.
looking to the future, our generation is going to be the one who probably had the most people survive from it.
You might be one of the biggest generations now because you're.
Mm-hmm.
But I also you didn't. Your generation's small because Gen X didn't have a lot of children, so I don't
That's
even know what
true.
the numbers on Gen Z are. But I
Mm-hmm.
think you're right. People between the ages of 18 and like 35,
Mm-hmm.
probably going to be one of the biggest generations. That's a
Yeah.
mix of millennial and Z. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I
Definitely.
wonder if a whole new generation will emerge. So overall, do you think your friends are feeling positive about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's, for me, nothing changed. I was at home every day. Only thing I did was go to school. Um, and I feel like a lot of students is like we don't really, I mean, what hang out with our friends here and there. So I feel like everybody's pretty much just going with the flow. I think a lot of teens, especially me, I'm the type of go with the flow guy. I'll just kick back, watch everything happen, you know, go with the flow. Hmm. That's the vibes.
Can't
Hmm.
disagree with that. I mean,
Right. Hmm.
all right. Well, that sounds
That's a good episode. Um, thank you for coming on.
Oh, dude, yeah, this is
This is
fun.
like really cool. Hopefully people watch this because like I feel like people who don't even go to college and they are hearing a teacher talk, I feel like that's good for them. It's probably been years, you know.
Not years.
2, 4, 5 years. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
Mhm.
forget you're young. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
2 years is like years.
Years. All right. Well,
Hey,
thank you for coming on the New
thanks for
Black
having me.
Podcast.